What's that?
about Mark's feel on the
Yes.
Yes, love that.
Okay.
That's what I'm ready.
We have a vote on the floor for approval of minutes and all for it. I hear yes.
Yes.
I didn't hear what you said. Sorry.
Ready?
I would second
And then it's approved. Onto the road report.
that. So Joel is ill. He just wanted me to report that the crews have been working on projects that don't require culverts and things of that nature, waiting for the new fiscal year to roll over. So once the new fiscal year starts, we're going to be finishing up the MRGP work that we have outstanding from last year. And they're going to start tackling Lewis Road.
Okay, good. Right? That it for right now on the road report?
Yeah. Yes.
Community development?
So the first item on there is the grant applications for generators. So I submitted on behalf of the town and in partnership with the school district to a grant for 2 generators, one at the Poultney High School and one at the Poultney Elementary School. The Poultney High School is the primary emergency shelter for the community, and the elementary school is the alternate. We submitted a grant for $210,500 for DPS hazard mitigation funds. There will be additional applications from the senior center, sounds like. So that's that. The second one is mini-MERP. It's the same grant program that we use to assess the town properties for energy resilience, but the mini-MERP program is an award that is intended, has a couple of different uses. In Poultney, we will be doing a button-up type event with Jeremy from the Regional Planning Commission, and in partnership with the Planning Commission. Jeremy and I are going to the Planning Commission meeting sometime this month to make a plan for what this actually is. It's primarily community engagement about energy resilience and making sure that folks know what is out there for resources and having a little bit of awareness around weatherization projects, information from Efficiency Vermont as well. So that should be happening later this summer. And the other update is relative to the 4th of July, which is coming along pretty well at this point. The chamber has been helping, as well as Talk to Spirits and the fire department. We have most of the vendors lined up and for both dates. And the only thing at this point is that we need some more registrations for the parade. And the chamber's been doing a little bit of promotion for that. So looking good.
Flyover?
I think so. Fingers crossed. All the paperwork's in. It's not official yet.
Any questions for Sarah?
I have a question. On the high school, the generator, what was going to be available? How much money?
I don't know how much is, it's actually a very large fund, but the total, and I don't have it broken out, but it's one emergency generator for the high school. The 2 generators combined were $210,500 was the application.
That should be.
Yeah, they're big generators.
I would kill the rock.
Yeah. I can send you the breakdown if you need it.
I'm just concerned with the seniors.
Yeah, senior center. We'll get them in.
All right, good.
All right.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. Doing a good job with the 4th.
Thanks for your help, Cheryl.
Since we're on the 4th, a couple folks have asked me, given the fact that the 4th is Thursday and the 5th will be the day that for the fireworks and all the stuff done at the elementary school, whether or not the board is amenable to giving employees not only the 4th off, but also the 5th. I do know that with the fireworks, I'm probably going to be down, tied up with that on the 5th anyways. For me personally, I know it'll be difficult for me to be here in the office. So,
that'd be a Thursday.
it's a question.
It's Friday.
It's a Friday, so Thursday's a 4th, Friday's a 5th, so then
Thursday,
Thursday,
right?
Friday, yeah.
Yes, the 4th is a Thursday.
Thursday.
How do you feel about that, Alan?
They go from who's off anyway. Speak to a few other employees.
Mark?
Right.
No, you can do enough, I can do enough.
No, we'll be here.
Yes?
So the town hall would be closed.
I mean, that's a question that, that's a question that had been asked to some employees, and the library folks had asked me as well, what this office is doing.
How do you feel about that?
I think we have to make sure we start posting it now that it won't be here, because that's a big registration, that's a big date. We're still a rec camp that day. I still have soccer camp that day, Friday morning, so I know people will want to come in here, so we have to make sure people are notified that office will be closed. And the library, whatever's closed.
So library will be closed too.
They've asked me what this office is doing, what town clerk's office is doing.
So we're gonna be under the pretense they're gonna be closed.
I don't know. That's why I'm asking the board what you want to do. I'm certainly going to be here, but I'm not going to be in this
In the office.
building all day.
So you're okay with it?
So the
Yes? Yes, as long as we put it out, everybody's okay? I hear a motion?
Folks on July 5th.
Fourth will close anyway, but on the 5th. You second it, Val? Any comments or questions by the board? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, motion carried.
There's a lot of businesses that they're doing things that I think people would expect.
Should be in our handbook, if we ever get to that then. When the 4th falls.
Right,
I'll be working.
on to the town manager's report.
So we've got Evan Fitzgerald, who is on the Zoom. He's an engineer who's doing the Poultney Rec study for us. And I think we're just going to sort of do some.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you good.
Good. I don't want to take up a ton of your time. I don't know how much time you have. I was just going to give a quick overview of the work we're doing in response to the grant that you got. And if we need to recap the grant, we can. But I do remember talking with the select board before you even got the grant about this issue. So I know that many of you are quite familiar with it. So, like I said, I don't want to tell you things that you already know. But a quick recap, the town received a grant from Vermont Emergency Management. It's called Building Resilience and Infrastructure, BRIC grant. And the purpose of it is to evaluate flood mitigation alternatives at the D&H rail crossing. My understanding, and you can tell me if it's any different, but the bridge opening has had some manipulations over the years. Specifically in the 1970s, it used to be a 2-span bridge, and now it's a 1-span bridge. So one of the openings, it had a pier in the middle and two openings, much bigger area for floodwaters to pass through. And one span was closed off at the request of the D&H rail in the 1970s, and the DEC approved that. Since that time, there have been some changes in the river and probably flooding has been upstream, which does impact several residences. I suspect has been aggravated, although you're the folks in town who probably have a better finger on the pulse of that. We see, in the flood mapping that the 100-year flood extents upstream of the bridge are pretty substantial, and they do. When you really zoom out and look at the community and look at where the flood extents are, they really do bubble out, upstream of this bridge, which suggests that it's quite a contraction of the flood flows, a constriction in the 100-year flood, which makes sense. It's a lot of water to fit through a pretty small opening. Our job is to evaluate the existing conditions, and just quickly what we typically do with these alternative studies, we go out and verify the existing conditions. So we do survey of both the topography around the bridge and the bridge itself and in the river. And we actually did that last week. We had a crew of 4 people, including myself, who went out and had a really nice weather day, actually, and spent the full day out in the river. Saw a lot of people using the trail. A lot of people had opinions about what we were doing or thinking about. So that's always good to get that community feedback. We actually just coincidentally met someone from VTrans who was out that day doing some regular just maintenance observations. So we kind of got a bit of history of the maintenance from VTrans perspective that day too. So it was a useful survey day. Next, we will take all that data and put it into what's called a hydraulic model. So this is the same kind of model that FEMA contractors use to estimate where the 100-year flood zone is and 500-year flood, all that stuff. We're going to make that reflective of today's conditions. That'll be the baseline then from which we start our alternatives evaluation. So the grant that you got calls for evaluating 3 to 5 flood mitigation alternatives. And based on our site work, our field work, we have some initial ideas brewing. But before we actually get too deep into evaluating those in the model, we'd want to bring those ideas back to you. So that'd probably be our first point of kind of interaction with you all at the town to kind of hear a bit more about your perspective, and certainly tonight, if you have the time and like to tell me more, I'm happy to listen to any ideas that you have as we get going. So we would, once we all agree on alternatives for us to evaluate, we would look at those pretty carefully, and FEMA and Vermont Emergency Management kind of has a prescribed protocol for doing what's called a benefit cost analysis. So we'd look at, the costs of doing any interventions, whether that be re-widening the span or opening up that historic span, that kind of thing. We'd look at the costs of those against the flood reduction benefits. And from that point, then we would try to hone in on a preferred alternative with your help. So we'd want input from you on that after we present the results of that alternative study. And then we'd produce a report with a recommended preferred alternative. So that is our overview. And I will just, one thing I did discover, which I could share on the screen if you can allow me to screen share. I don't know if that's
yeah, it's on. You can share.
Okay. I think there might have been, I know when the Selectboard brought up this issue. Can you all see my screen? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so I've got a 1962 aerial photograph up. It's a pretty crisp black and white photo. And when I was writing this proposal for you, we my colleagues and I dug back through some of the reporting that you had shared, which was a pretty old request actually from the D&H rail to the DEC river engineering section about all the justification for why they wanted to close off one of these openings. And I thought I remember the select board saying that the northern span was closed off. And it would appear in looking at the photo that that could have been the case. However, we know now after our field work and looking at this photo a little more closely that it was actually, and reading the initial request from D&H, it was actually the southern abutment that was closed off. And we found these old abutments in the field. So in other words, there were originally two openings, one here, this opening, which in the 60s and probably in 1973, when this request was made to fill this section, the primary flow was going through this northern opening. What we think happened was when this was closed off, the Poultney River carries a fair amount of, and probably moves a fair amount of gravel through this reach of the river. And you see like a big gravel bar here in the middle. Closing off one of these abutments cause, and we see this a lot when you constrict a river more than it's used to being constricted. Of course, it slows the velocity of flow down upstream of the bridge, and all of that material that the river's carrying, the gravel, sometimes even cobble in a big flood, tends to settle out, right? Because the velocity is slowing. So what I think happened was a big gravel bar filled in here. River went around it to the north. There's been, since the 70s, a primary channel around the north that wraps around like this. Oops. And I think I have a photograph up. So here it is, wrapping around. And actually today, this northern oxbow is dry, and the primary flow is coming through here. So again, here's where that southern opening was. You kind of see the contours, this low area here and here. This is where the pier was. Here was the opening. Yeah, that's, I thought I remembered a different description when I first chatted with you all a few years ago. So I wanted to share that.
I'm Tim Loomis. I have owned property to the west of that property since 1983. I bought property. My son also owns the one farther west. And what is happening, I think you're focusing too much on the abutment and the bridge. What is happening in there is too much gravel has accumulated over the years and has turned that section from the trestle all the way down to the college into a delta. And if you walk down there during July, you can basically walk over the Poultney River without getting your feet wet. There is like 10, 12 tributaries. Del Noble has also said that she never got water in her basement, and now it's a common factor. My contention is what's happened over the years is the gravel from Loop Road and the Poultney River just washing down has ended up west of the trestle and just kind of splayed out all over the area, all the way down through the college. If you go down through there, you can't even navigate the river. You know, it's turned into little tributaries all across that. I don't know if
But on the other side, towards the village side of that trestle, we have some serious ice jams in the wintertime.
But that's being caused from the no place for the water to flow.
Right. So that's why I'm wondering if we need to open that up again.
Over the years, and I don't know if anybody's old enough to remember Clay Cooper.
Yep.
He actually owned the property
That's where he
across
got all his gravel from.
on the south. He used to go into the river and make little trenches. And when it flooded and we had significant rainstorms, it'd come in there and he'd sell it to the town. The town would put it on the loop road. It'd come back down there 20 years later and he'd sell it to the town. And it was a cycle that worked quite well.
I bought a fair amount of that stuff.
Yeah, you know,
So it sounds like we have a problem on both sides of that trestle, you know, with water flow.
yeah, that's, I think my thought is if you took care of the west side of the trestle, the east side wouldn't be a problem.
I disagree with that.
Well,
Seeing that,
can we?
yeah, we'll go on with your, presentation, Evan.
I didn't go down.
Yeah, and
May I ask a question, Evan?
yeah, please.
So my understanding was, when you're considering alternatives, are you not only considering alternative potential solutions for the cost benefit analysis, but also alternative reasons why you think this has become more of an issue over the years?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really key part of understanding what, you know, diagnosing the problem. I guess if the problem is flooding in general, which is what I understand, and I guess looking at a map of the area and where the floodplain is, and where the most residences are that are affected by flooding. This was just my own personal interpretation. I assumed that the upstream flooding area and the homes along 31 there are is the primary area of concern. But I'm hearing that downstream flooding is also an issue, I guess. But in order for us to understand the whole system and what viable solutions may exist, yes, we need to understand, and that's part of we need to understand how it's behaving. And that's kind of part of our initial research and data collection and modeling. So
in other words, my question is, will you not only be looking at your hydrology models to say, is it the removal of the opening under the trestle, or maybe what Mr. Loomis is suggesting, it's the significant deposits of gravel west of the trestle, or maybe there's some other reason that, will your analysis look at all that stuff?
Back in the 80s, we used to tube from the trestle down past the college. And now there's no way that you can do that.
I used to run it with the canoes.
Yeah, and now it
That big.
turns into 4 or 5 tributaries that are not a foot deep.
What,
you mind? I'm going to share my screen again. I just want to be sure that I'm following everything you're saying. Okay, so here's what we've observed so far, and if we have to, extend our observations, we certainly can.
Sure.
The whole area that we understood from the town's description is the D&H rail crossing here and the history around it. What I'm hearing is the river, and I have been down here to the old spur out to the quarry and seen that, the river's cut into that old It actually looks like there was an oxbow here. Maybe some of you know an oxbow here that maybe got cut off when this railroad spur went out to the quarry.
Yes, there was.
Yep. And it looks like the river's kind of taken that over now here. It says, I want to be back in that space. So we've seen that. I have not looked carefully at this bridge downstream. We didn't make it that far down. We certainly can. When you describe the shallowing of the river and the multiple tributaries, are you talking about in between Granville and the rail, or even further downstream?
Yeah, I'm talking about all the way down through from the trestle down to New York State.
Okay, so you really are talking about a long way down.
Yeah.
I mean,
and
so
that shows a defined river. And if you took a screenshot of it today, you wouldn't see a defined river, even after the rains that we've had tonight.
Okay. Now that I understand what you're saying, there are limits of how far down affects the area that we're concerned about up here, right? Because the river's losing elevation as it moves down. I know it is not a steep river, so it's but what we can look at is how far down does thinking about any mitigation alternatives, for example, downstream of Granville, potentially affect the issue up here. And we can look at that from an initial research and modeling standpoint, because it could be that what's happening down here does in fact have what we call a tailwater effect all the way back here, or it could be that
cause the ice jam up on the north.
Sure it would, because it has no place to go.
I'm saying we could determine that that's far away and do up in elevation. So I don't know the answer to that quite yet.
Okay.
So
Evan, when was this shot taken? What we're looking at now? 90, 2000?
I just pulled up the A&R Atlas just for convenience sake. I mean, usually these photos are quite, current. I mean, this is probably a photo within the last couple of years, typically.
Right.
Yeah. Although I will say, this is not reflective of current conditions, because there was a debris jam, I think. I don't know if it happened in last summer's flood or December flood, but this is actually closed off now.
Mm-hmm.
That happened our last ice jam that we had.
Yeah, 3 or 4 years ago, right?
Yeah, and the ice was from that trestle up to the Route 31 bridge.
Oh, so you're thinking this photo might actually be older, is what you're saying.
I am.
Yeah. I don't know. I can't tell you right off the bat what, when usually, like I said, this is the A&R Atlas. When you have it on, see, it's picking the most recent imagery, but it's, let's see if I can isolate it at all. Yeah, I don't know. I can't tell you right now. But we can go back through.
That many trees down. Huh? Those trees have been gone for quite a few years. Those trees right in the, there's just
there's a few left there.
Yeah, there's a few left.
There are trees along this bank.
West of where you're pointing, up top there. North now. Go north. Keep going. No.
You say north.
The patch of evergreens is what you're talking about.
That patch?
It's not that big anymore, and the river is actually cut into the open space. Yeah, where your cursor is.
Yeah.
But my main concern is that ice jam went from that trestle bridge to Route 31. And whatever caused that, and that's happened more than once That is a problem, a
Mhm.
big problem. And with the flooding that's going on in the state, we have to be proactive. So that was a quick call to action because if that does that again, we can end up in some serious trouble with those people upstream.
Sure.
If you scroll down farther, what would be southwest, you'll see the Noble property.
Over here,
Yeah, which would be
right by the
This is-
Granville Bridge.
this is
Oh, down,
Woodbury's.
down, right there. That's Noble.
This is Noble's, yeah.
Yeah, that's Noble.
And this is all, Dell's house is somewhere there.
Yeah.
Over here. Over there. Yeah. No, that's Woodbury's. This is Dell's house. Can't see what I'm pointing at.
No, but it's in that area.
Yeah. And she's getting water in her basement now that she never got.
There are some other streams that see going up.
Yeah, I see some other hydrology.
Yeah, right there,
Here.
right. Thank you.
But it's coming from the Poultney River, she's saying.
Now, Evan, how about if we straightened out the river to the east of the trestle bridge? You know,
Yeah.
actually create a nice channel, reestablish the channel.
There's a channel right there now.
Yes.
There is a channel.
A lot of trees in the river that,
Well, that trade, it needs to be deepened and widened.
I think we gotta let him do his work and
Yeah.
he'll find
Yeah.
out all this stuff for us.
yeah.
I know.
Before.
But you see how wide the trestle bridge is, nice and wide.
Well, anyways, to Alan's point,
Right.
we still have a lot of work to look at, correct?
We do indeed.
Only the experts.
Thank you, Evan.
A lot of opinions.
No, we like your input. I mean, honestly, the historical anecdotes for us, we want your input on the alternatives too, but for us to really get going and get an accurate depiction of what's going on today and understand the history, I mean, this is your town, so I'm just here. Well, I have been working in Poultney for a few years now, but you know your town well, way more than we do. So we want to have you help us understand, what that history is. So that's helpful.
Could I be notified when you're working down there or?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And I can notify Paul. I did. I wasn't sure if, we actually weren't much on other, properties, except for those immediately around the bridge. But if we do end up venturing, further down, we'll certainly, and we need to get on your land off the river, certainly let you know.
I have no problem with you going on our land. It's just that I like to be involved with it.
Sure.
And also,
Yep.
I own the 7 acres just past the trestle, and my son owns 13 acres that the river actually runs through on both sides.
Yeah, it would be nice to know the next time you're down,
Okay. Very well.
physically down in the area.
Sure thing.
Great.
Next step.
Next step, your next step?
Anything, Peter?
No, I like what Alan said. I think the experts have to do their work. I was down there with a river engineer at one point 2 years ago saying, hey, can I do something on my property, which is the east side of the trestle, to relieve people? She said she had some opinions and some thoughts on what you could and couldn't do. But as far as I know, the 3 principles of water are slow it, spread it, and sink it. Deeper, faster channels, and you get a sewage treatment plant immediately downstream, so higher velocity water is a danger too. Something she and I talked about a lot. But I love the fact that we've got a grant with some actual experts to study this and give us real objective data to make fun of it.
What's your next step, Evan?
Our next step is to develop what we call an existing conditions plan with all the information that we prepared or that we collected in the field, and then translate all that into an accurate hydraulic model of the area. And at that point, then we'd want to come back and share the model. Actually, I hope you'll find the modeling really insightful because it's very interactive. The software is really advanced these days, and you'll see it'll really give you a picture of what is happening, and you can help us kind of validate that. Okay, our model is showing what happens in a flood. And we can consider the ice effects as well. I didn't know that was a big issue. So now that you've mentioned that, we can look into that as well. So our next step back with you is going to be sharing the model and coming up with some of a list of alternatives.
Okay.
That we can then focus on. Yep.
Okay. Good.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Nick,
Okay.
Nick, you got your hand? Nick, you got your hand up? Or?
I think there were some concerns. I don't remember exactly off the top of my head. I think there were concerns about the stability of the span at that time. But I do have the report. I'm not going to dig into it right now, but we have that report from 1973, and it actually has the request in it. So let me look into that, and I can get back to Paul with an answer for you.
Okay, Nick? Okay. Thank you.
If you're all set with me, I'll probably hop off the meeting. So.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you, Evan.
Thanks,
Okay.
Evan.
We'll talk soon. Bye.
Yep.
So you've been down in there with,
A lot.
and that's on this side of the river too, because that ice jam is what's got me really.
Yeah, so the ice jam last few times were pretty bad,
Yeah.
but at the same time, that's why you're not allowed to cut the trees on the riverbank. That's floodplain. That helps mitigate the situation at typical times. Now,
These are right in the middle of the river.
the water goes out into my field. It's all right. I'll deal with the consequences. Again, if it helps people, if it saves basements and saves infrastructure, then yeah, let's do what we need to do. But otherwise, I mean, even during Katrina, the water didn't touch Sergeant Pool. My Uncle Michael in that house for 40 years before that, and the pool never got touched. All those people, you yourself, Jeff, you live along the river and we can help, let's do something about it. But otherwise, I mean, whatever the environmental engineers say is probably the way to go. But yeah, I'm down there a lot. I'm on it. I try to, when I was a kid, I used to jump off the bridge and you'd never touch the bottom, and they were so deep. And after Irene, and it cut that center channel through, it pushed all the gravel right in. And now it's no more than about 4 feet deep, even at the high point down there.
It was actually before Irene did that.
Did it start to fill in before then?
Yeah.
It's just got me very, very, very nervous about, backing up from the trestle this way. Maybe it is downstream we got to work, and some up here too, but that's why we got the grant for these guys.
Yeah, I just think we have to be careful. My grandfather said back in the 60s, the soil conservation spent countless millions hiring people like him to dig out swamps and turn them into ponds. And it actually, in the end, the river science shows that it increased the risk. Our understanding of how water flows has changed so much over the years, and we need to be careful not saying, hey, let's go dig it, trench it out. Because even though that might mitigate from the trestle to your house, all of a sudden the sewer plant now is in line for higher velocity water. And that's a major infrastructure.
Yeah.
The river engineer that I had down there told me that even if we go in and mitigate this, because FEMA's flood map is based on a 100-year issue, it won't even relieve anybody's flood insurance. Because that was my first thought, is can we help?
I'm just thinking of flooding the town.
There's so many variables. These guys are the only ones that be able to tell us what's right and wrong.
And we're going in the right direction.
Totally agree.
I agree with it too. It's like, just makes sense to, the river has definitely changed in the last 5 years.
We'll see what he comes up with.
Wow.
See what he comes up with. That's the next step.
And a little asterisk, I won't talk anymore, but a little asterisk is the recreation that's down there. I'm down there all the time trying to pick up garbage, keep it safe, make sure people can go use it. Because it is such a great spot. It's accessible to town. The mountain bike trail is going to go right by. You know, that little beachy area that's on my side is used by a lot of people, and there's some value in that too. Again, not in spite of infrastructure and lives and things like that, but there's value to it. So, and if we can keep it that way, I don't mind leaving that open for everybody to use if it stays that way.
All right. Good. Well, we're going in the right direction. So that you come up.
Has your house been flooded at all?
No, mine's out. When Glenn built it, he built it outside the floodplain. Yeah, the floodplain my barns are. So if you look at my address, it says my address is in the floodplain, but it's just the barns, not the.
See, my house is in the floodplain, but Irene, what's got me scared is the ice jams. That's not the first, that last one was not the first bad ice jam.
Yeah, those have gotten worse, I think, for sure. Luckily enough, between my property on the north side and Bixby's, mine on the south side, there's enough woods there to kind of catch a lot of that stuff and spread it. But it does seem to be getting worse.
I don't want the people right down here getting flooded out.
It's funny how the water flows too, because, you know, Scott's old house where the flaggers are now in Malazzo got flooded during Irene, but yet it never went into Sergeant's pool.
Never went into
It's
it.
odd how it flows. And the ice jam, it actually flowed and went behind Sergeant's house, went directly into the middle of my field, hit the railroad tracks south of the trestle, like where the old abutment was they were talking about, and then it turned back north to meet back in there. It's funny how it flows over there. It's gonna be hard to predict and control anyway.
Yeah. I will learn something out of this. All right. On to the next one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Fire Chief Aaron Kerber. What do you got for us?
Just Paul, set with his report.
Yeah, you're the next one on the
Your
list.
next one on.
I'm here myself and Rod Freshface, second and third chief Robert Dayton. Got a couple handouts for you. First of which, we'll start with tonight, the apparatus information that you guys have asked for.
Thank you.
We took delivery of the new truck, and we're talking about the replacement plan and how we were trying to get the funds to make sure it could stay in pace with the replacement schedule and cost inflation on the apparatus. So the first 3 pages of that document are just the layout of what we currently have in the fleet, what they are, basics on what they carry for equipment. The fourth sheet in the document is our response guide. And that lays out what apparatus leads out for what call, depending on, of course, what the call is and how severe it is, how much apparatus is actually going to go without being especially requested. So a lot of information on that. That's, I know, something you guys have been asking for a while. I apologize for taking this so long to get to you all. That you want for you guys to take the course and just peruse through it as you want. And one other item, well, a couple of things I want to discuss. Operationally wise, for what we've been doing over the last, my apologies, didn't have a captain's report or a activity report for May for you. It wasn't available just yet. May was a little bit busier for us, but overall the year, knock on wood, we've been quiet. I'll use that term. For us, for at this point last year, we'd been involved in, we were, I'm pretty sure, somewhere around 17, 18 structure fires in the general area. Now, of course, year to date so far, we've only been involved in one. Not a good one at all by any stretch of imagination. But we have been involved in one recently. The other good stuff, training wise, been working on some extrication with that new truck, some of the newer stuff. So that top truck on the first page, the ER551, those rescue jack struts, which are almost at the bottom there, are new with that truck as well. Very useful tool for us, new to us. We've been using them a lot. The highway has graciously helped us by letting us use their loader to position vehicles into the precarious positions that we find them in, because training with the car on the ground is not how every accident is for us. So we have to try and position them so we can make sure with those struts and with other stabilization stuff, we can ensure the vehicle's safe for us to operate around and to get the person, hopefully that's not trapped out of the vehicle and such. One other big item for us is we were finally out on these Slate Valley trails with both the UTVs, the one from the Conines donation and the one the town has purchased. The people that partook in the training themselves feel so much more confident in the abilities of the machine and themselves to be able to operate now. It was quite a great Saturday morning that we were out there doing that. Everybody feels a lot more sure of themselves when they have to, unfortunately, if they have to go out there, we're even more prepared than we've ever been. So with that, mapping that patrons help us out with and getting it up on all of our devices so we can try and make sure we're tracking ourselves accordingly worked phenomenal that day. So a lot of good stuff there. One of the other items, I have one more truck thing to discuss a little bit later, but one of the other items I wanted to bring to your guys' attentions. OSHA is working on an update for the rules that oversee fire departments. 40 years since we've seen an update of the OSHA standard. The OSHA standard's 1910-156. It's the standard by which they hold us to for safe working environments for our volunteer firefighters and all firefighters across the United States. A lot of big stuff. Some high points that we put into this little document for you guys and gals. What's that?
That stinks.
Yeah. As we say in the document, we're 100% having a safe as possible, fire ground, fire station, all that. However, in the highlighted stuff, you can see it's going to have some fairly negative impacts on the organization just based on what it's going to require of us. Well, it's all good stuff. Unfortunately, the demands are going to take us to different levels with our manpower not being able possibly to attend enough of the trainings that would be necessary to even perform the jobs anymore.
Do we have some trainings here? Like I know you have in the past. Is there any way to like support them, have trainings here or to help out with the payment that would?
For sure. For the certification and training requirements, a lot of this stuff on the lower end for the firefighters and stuff, a lot of us can do in-house. The documentation process is changing dramatically from us just filling out a roll call where we could pull that back up and say, this person's attended all these. Now it's every person in that fire department needs to have their own sheet that they're punched off on everything that they're looking to do and be trained on, which is not a bad thing. It just goes above and beyond versus us having our spreadsheet where it has everybody's hours and we can go through and say, yeah, this person's good for this and that. Everyone has to have their individualized sheets. Under that too, under number A, or under A there, currently with all our extensive training, we'll not be able to fill all of our officers' positions. With the new standard, they're requiring chiefs to be fire officer 1, 2, and 3. The state of Vermont, the state of New York, we've been to trainings in both talking about this stuff, do not offer officer 3 at their fire academies at all. So in the state of Vermont and New York, if this standard comes down through, people would have to find it other places. The academies have already said it'll be a couple of years before they'd be able to teach that and bring that program to be available. So the town of Poultney as a whole right now, if this went through full as they have it spelled out right now. Right now it's still in comment period. One of the things I was going to ask you all tonight would be to take this, look at it. If you would be so willing to do a little research and I get more information for you, so maybe come up with some comments on how you think it's going to affect the town and the fire department. And as the select board or select board persons to fill comments to the NFPA public comment section so they have more awareness that this has real
impacts on the
real impacts, and they want us to write them in comments from the fire department ourselves to get to them and say, this is how it's going to specifically impact the Poultney Fire Department and what it's going to do to us. Like I said, we all agree, I'm sure everyone here will agree, we want all of this to come through in a way that is safer for everybody, but to minimize the impact. So it's not, you know, if this hits in 2 years and the Vermont State Fire Academy still has not been able to teach that course, town of Poultney does not have a fire chief because no one is eligible to be that position. So
I love these mandates.
Yeah,
so
They're unrealistic.
they're saying that all of this, so through their, because of course they don't just throw it out there, they try and do their own information. The OSHA has done some research on their own and said this is all the paperwork that would need to be necessary for this, for Poultney Fire. If we're an average fire department, we're only being like 178 hours additional administration time. And I'm looking at it and reading the standard going, not even close. And the amount of money should be less than 1% of your operating budget. And like he says, infrastructure and facility upgrades, they're alone. Any upgrades, if some of this stuff comes to fruition, the decontamination rooms for our gear, sprinklers in the building, exhaust removal system. So when the trucks start up, you don't have exhaust going in the building. All that right there is well over 1% of all of our budgets, capital and the operating budget. So just want to bring that to your attention. The training in New York we went to, or the meeting we went to in New York talking about it, of course, the way the timing of it's going is they're saying that they think best case scenario is this is 5 years before it actually drops full on. Worst case scenario, worst case being it's going to come faster, is 24 months. There's a chance that this gets enacted and pushed right through. So this is the OSHA standard. In Vermont, we fall under FOSHA. There's no OSHA. They take the Fed OSHA rule, they decipher it themselves and say, no less, they can't go less than it. What do we want to add to it to make it more safe? So we have that still out there that they might take the OSHA standard and add to it. And when it comes to us, there might be more. There might not be. New York is the only state right now from OSHA 1910-156 that's actually more stringent because they have PESH, which I forget how it is, but that's where the fire companies fall over there. They have an additional requirement in their turnout gear that they have a bailout system. So they get a second story and get trapped in something they already have a harness on them with a rope ready to bail out the window. They're the only state that requires that, but it is something that we have to be aware of, that at some point OSHA could say take OSHA standard and jack it up a little bit higher yet. So I just want to make everybody aware of it. It is a big deal. Everybody this started years ago, and everyone's that's not coming, that's not coming, that's not going to affect the volunteers because OSHA is for employers. You know, the volunteers, we're always told, you know, you're not employees, you're not employees. Well, in fact, most definitely we are. It kind of holds our workman's comp and all that liability. So we are 100% employees of the town on a volunteer status. We are not paid directly. However, you cover all of our workman's comps and all that stuff. So it directly impacts us. So it was something that just in the last 6 months, everyone was like, oh boy, because it was, you know, anything. So if it's even workman's comp, you're paying for us for a length of service award. So if we had a retirement type system, even if that's what all you guys did, everybody did here for us, we're technically employers. So it was a big shock for a lot of people.
Do you see that all across Vermont though? It's not, I mean, I always look at us as we're pretty good in here, Poultney.
We're
all
pretty
across
busy.
Vermont, are they all in the same boat? So it's not just.
It would all be in the same boat. So even so the chief officer requirement in the state of Vermont, as in the state of New York, unless somebody went elsewhere to get that fire level or fire officer level 3 training individually, the state has never offered that class. So probably most volunteer departments in this state, unless somebody came, we even have somebody who know my first assistant, Angelo Natoli, is from New Jersey with 47 years. He was a chief down there, never had fire officer 3. So even coming from New Jersey with 40 plus years, he had never taken that class. He still would not be eligible to be the chief in town of Poultney under that guidance. So
How many paid departments would that hit?
That's so.
Maybe some pushback there.
No.
Oh, we can't generate revenue to even cover the cost of it.
Unfortunately, that's one of the bigger parts. Last bit of stuff, the last page.
Where are we
on that
going?
first page. What's that? That was enough.
You
I was going to use this one last. So I talked to Paul already, a little bit,
Last page on this one?
the first thing up.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, yep. Is the truck replacement plan. Another thing coming down the pipe for, everybody is the EPA's new emissions for diesel engines, heavy duty and the like. The next step is going to hit at 2027, which is right around, if you go down through the little sheet there, we're looking to order the next big truck in 2026, which is the EPA 553. That falls directly in line for the that new standard of emissions.
What's the first one? Says order in 2025.
The little brush. So
Oh,
that's
the brush, that's a little one.
that's the little one. That is currently this year, next year, we would be buying that. But I wanted to ask, discuss with you guys and ask is the thoughts, we would like to pursue possibly upping that timeline on that big truck as soon as we can sign a contract to ensure we have one before the next emission standard, to not have to step into that next bracket of emission tier and the associated costs with it in the initial purchase and the long life cost expectancy of that different emission system.
So would you push some of these out to push that up?
We could move, and that's why the plan, in the bottom there, all dates are approximate 24 months, depending on what we need to move to account for stuff like this.
What do you have in your budget? Do you have in your budget?
I do not have the money. We would have to bond a portion of that.
Now, that might end up starting to become a bit of a problem.
Yeah.
Because we have a new town garage that we desperately need.
Yes.
And we're looking for a new town office.
Yeah.
And we may end up having to bond one of those.
Yeah.
Try and figure a way
So
to do that within your budget.
I don't think that's gonna, so unfortunately,
Even if it takes one more year.
even if so, the problem is even at the current inflation rate on the cost of the trucks, we're still not, with our truck budget upping it the way we are, we're not matching what it's going up. If we waited another year, I'm still going to be short the same amount of money because of the inflation of the truck. On top
I'm
of
going to
that,
tell you right now, the bond will be a very difficult thing to do.
and I would 100%, if we would had your blessing, would be right behind it to push and give all of our efforts to make sure that we are finding every grant opportunity available to us first,
That's what I would
and
do.
then go to bring it to all of you to give our blessing to, if we have to put a bond item on the ballots, then we put it there with your blessing, of course.
That's going to be, I'm trying to say that
Yeah,
If you get,
our town garage is
yes.
so, number one.
Some of it, what we'd have to do, I'll take back a little bit of that. We would have to bond for that upfront payment on that to get into a cycle. A lot of that can be absorbed by what we put away for the trucks every year, but we wouldn't have the money upfront to pay cash, and just like the little one that we just bought, where we just write the check and we're done. We don't talk to a bank, we don't talk to anybody. For this next big truck, whether it's we buy it in the next year or if we buy it in 3 years, I'm going to be cash short to make a full checkout.
Yeah, I was under the understanding that you had it in place so that
So if we
it's
had-
$110,000 a year in the budget for your vehicle equipment replacement.
So back when Jonas was here, we wanted that at 150, and we got cut to the 100, and then we stayed there because of all the other stuff going on. And that's why we've been trying to get back to that 150 number. Unfortunately, the way inflation's gone right now, that number is not realistic, but we're trying to hold as tight as we can to that number. Trucks have gone up by incredible
I
amounts.
understand that.
Castleton just signed their contract on the same little guy that we just got at $100,000 more than what we purchased ours
Before we
for.
start talking about a bond,
Yes. Do the rest of the numbers.
do the rest of the numbers and see what you can do
For sure.
for getting something that you aren't gonna get. Find out what is the number one truck you need
So that,
and go for that one first.
that's the one. So that one's the one on the primarily that's what this plan is written for, is to buy that big truck every 10 years. So that we stay within the NFPA guidance that the truck that served the town of Poultney as a primary truck is less than 10 years old. That's where we buy up in the working vehicles or the replacement plan. So our replacement plan proper thing is we're buying that first, the one that covers the town solely is less than 10 years old or less than 10 years old. And after 10 years, that new one shows up and that one takes the back seat to be this backup.
I understand your philosophy on
Yep.
it. All I'm saying is, you're talking bond.
Yep.
And I'm talking for the town of Poultney, we need
Yep.
a new town garage.
Yep.
Which is a big project.
Yep.
And we may end up having to take a bond. And a lot of taxpayers, I know, have a hard time paying interest on a loan with taxes. All I'm saying is find
Yep.
what you can do
Yep.
without a bond. Look at it without it as best as you possibly can.
We can do it.
So
That's right,
if,
just one.
if you get over certain emissions, does that mean the following year you're gonna have to upgrade or something? Or is that why you want to get it early because it's your grandfather in and that's your
Yeah.
truck?
Yeah.
So when the emissions changes, you don't have to say, I
Okay.
need,
Yeah, no, it
You have
already
that
met
for,
the
like,
standard of when it was built, and that's what it needs.
that's what it needs to be.
That's what it needs to be. I understand
That makes
that.
sense
Yeah.
for getting that.
Just try and find,
Yeah. So and that's where we're at. The biggest thing is, unfortunately, I'm cash short. If I work the
how
numbers around,
much. So you come in, you say cash short.
I'm not
We're thinking,
100%
are you 200, 300,
more
400?
than that.
More than that?
Unfortunately.
By the time you're ready to purchase it or right now today?
So
You have 2
I was
years.
trying to have more numbers. I can't get a final number at where we're at currently. There's numbers apparently that still need to be moved around this fiscal year. So, I do not have 100% accurate number. I just want to get a feel for how you
Yeah,
felt
let's
that.
find out the
about what's
numbers
going on.
before we do anything. The true numbers.
Yeah.
Because if you're talking 400, 500,000 short, the eyebrows are lifting here. We can't even walk in that town garage without an umbrella during a rainy day.
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah, no, I just wanted to get everyone's general feel to see if it's worth our time or not, because
get the true numbers there and see.
some of the paperwork, we're getting a little tighter on our time and what we have available to offer, so. All right.
So your job is getting harder.
Yeah.
What is actually pushing for this stuff?
So the OSHA guidance, it's been 40 years. Every other industry is usually done, I want to say it's less than 10 by far. They'll review it and push the safety changes they want to see. They hadn't touched that NFPA standard for the fire departments since 1980. So, and we unfortunately, we as a whole, we lose 100 plus firefighters a year in the United States of America.
In Vermont? You know the
In
number?
Vermont, it's 1 or 2 every other year or something
What
like
you're
that.
telling me is you're looking for a new truck earlier than anticipated. It's huge, it's big money.
Yeah.
And on top of that, we're looking at sprinkler systems, decontamination rooms, exhaust systems, separate PPE storage. Now you're talking huge money there too.
Yes.
So we'll have to think about it.
Yeah, 100%. That's tonight. Unfortunately, it's not a good night, but that unfortunately is just where everything is headed. It's
Well, we appreciate you updating us.
As long as we know the direction it's going in. Like you say, where
So-
it's heading.
right now. Comment period ends July 22nd. So if anyone has the time and availability to do a little,
We just make sure we get the information of who we should call or email or
I
whatever.
will get that call to get to everybody. So
July 22nd?
July 22nd, they're trying to get an extension to push it to September. Trying trying to keep pushing. So when a rule change comes from OSHA during comment period, they say a lot of comments is 2 to 300 on their open comment period. We've already had one extension because of the amount of comments that are coming in. We're looking for another. They have well over 1,000 comments on this rule change. So some of this stuff might, I'm not going to say it's going to go away.
No, they'll look at it.
They'll look at it and see. I think timelines will change on how they're going to lay out some of those rules. They'll understand that with the comment periods and all that, look, state academies don't even offer these courses for the fire officer. So we need to make sure we give them enough time to actually be able to come in compliance, because we just drop the rule day one, you start, that will shut down a lot of places really fast.
We don't need a new truck, we don't have anybody to.
We won't have anybody to run it. So
Has a representative weighed in at all, Patty?
I have not talked
Would be a good one for you, Shannon, that's a good idea, Mark, yeah.
yeah, I don't know what part they would be able to play into the
Yeah, Patty.
federal end of it, maybe on the
We're
local side
fortunate
of
we
it,
have two in town, Patty and Terry.
for sure. We have great resources.
Yeah, that's true.
All the
Alrighty,
information I
alrighty.
have for you
You
all
dropped
tonight.
the bomb on.
Do we have an address or an email address to?
I will have that, give that to Paul in the next day or two to get it to you all. Any questions you all have of us and anything else?
Let's find out the numbers. See what you can do.
100%.
Thanks, then.
Especially anything with training, if there's somehow we can help out with training, to do training closer and get someone to have them come to us or something like that. We'll help out with
Like
that.
the fire one, fire two stuff, usually the farthest people have had to go as of now is the academy, which is Pittsburgh, which is not
Which is not bad at all.
horrible. But usually when somebody signs up for that class, well, when you sign up for that class, it's $200. It's at least, it's one weekend or one night a week and 1 or 2 weekends or 1 or 2 Saturdays a month.
Yeah.
For-
Does Springfield still have a fire academy?
I don't know if they do or not. Not state driven anyway. No.
We need workers everywhere.
Aaron, we got some work.
Yes, we do.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you all for your time.
Planning Commission update.
So, a couple of people asked me about what's going on with the planning commission. Currently, the planning commission is working on a rewrite update of the bylaws. So they've been meeting, I think, every month, sometimes twice a month on that. We had the assistance through a municipal planning grant from the RRPC that is pretty much done. The RRPC consultant has looked through our current bylaws and made sure they're in compliance with new state standards and regulations. And the planning commission has been tweaking different sections and considering adding different sections to the bylaws. So I don't know, you want to add anything, Mark, or?
We are getting close to the end, but there has been requests for camping parks, trailer parks. So we're kind of entering that phase.
In the area, like in the general area?
Right. Mini homes, tiny homes,
Tiny homes.
tiny homes. That's kind of what we're focusing on.
There's been requests of like some camping areas. There's been inquiries about, primitive camping / primitive cabin accommodations. There's been a couple of requests for that.
Do they have to go to the state for laws on porta potties and how much water and all that stuff to know, like?
Yeah, the guidelines as far as how many campsites, I think it's 2. Then you need the primitive campsite. You can have nothing. Not many people want that. They want at least a porta potty. And if you go for more than 2 campsites, you need a wastewater permit. We start to go from $20,000, $30,000. Right? And there's one, you need at least 1 for every 10 sites. And porta potties do count up to a point. Stuff like that. So we're figuring out the sizes, not where they can go, but the sizes of the piece of land.
Like cost on taxes?
No, we don't get paid. No.
What do you mean, toss on top?
I'm saying people want to do that and they make income coming in. Like, it's just,
No,
it has to be, they still have to go through the state, correct? It's not just the
if you
town.
want a certain type of campground. It's for the wastewater stuff.
Oh, but regular campground, they don't need to go through that. Just follow the guidelines.
Yeah, there are some guidelines that we have already, but they're looking for more multiples. So that's kind of what we're working. Yeah.
Interesting.
And the trailer park, people are starting to ask when Poultney wants a trailer park.
I don't think so.
So, well, you can't really
A
say
trailer park or?
RV park.
RV park.
Oh, that's very different than a trailer park.
Yeah.
Sorry, I misunderstood you.
Well, that's, no, we are talking about a trailer park. Right. Nobody's asked for one yet, but we're trying to come up with some guidelines. That's about it. But we should be done short. 2 more meetings.
You think so?
Yeah, I hope so.
I missed the last half of last meeting, so maybe I missed a lot.
Yeah, we finished it tiny home.
Okay.
Well,
My foundation falls in before I get it jacked up, I'll be in the tiny
yeah,
home.
be tiny homes. You look at that.
Without a permit.
Good things take time.
Okay, Rutland County Sheriff.
Just
Department.
let you know that as every year we have the Rutland County Sheriff's Department contract that went up by about 10%. And getting ready to sign it. It starts July 1st.
Gonna get 10% more coverage.
No.
Then before there's something, there's a personnel issue I would like to bring up about that contract in executive session, if we can do that.
Well, we do have plan to go into executive session for a couple of different contractual matters.
There's one that really needs to be in executive session
Okay.
on that matter before we sign that contract.
Fair enough. We can do that.
And we'll come out of executive session if we can then go back and sign the contract if the board chooses to. But before we go, I want to just. All right. Anything else, Paul?
Only we have I do want to add a personnel matter under, executive session. I have contracts now, under there, but I also want to add a personnel matter.
Okay. That's it?
That's all I got for now, yeah.
Any of the lawful select board business? Not hearing any. Rutland Regional Planning Commission?
It's cool.
Okay, so the Regional Planning Commissioners meeting, most recent one was May 21st, which was about 3 years ago. So I'm looking at the minutes. There was a Velco presentation. Velco presented the findings of their 2024 Vermont Long Range Transmission Plan. And they're seeking input on the plan, which may include infrastructure upgrades and renewable energy generation in the Rutland region. I do recall there was a lot of renewable energy conversation in the presentation. The Vermont DEC, Department of Environmental Conservation, presented on the 3-acre permit. There are, just so we have it in the minutes, there are properties in Poultney that are under that permit and required to submit. So anyone who hasn't followed up on that, the state's been corresponding with property owners directly, but there is funding for the initial permit, the 3-acre permit obtainment. So it's up to $49,999, with up to $30,000 for engineering expenses. And so if there is anyone in Poultney that is under that jurisdiction, they should reach out to me as soon as possible. The funding is drying up quickly. Rutland County has 89 properties subject to the permit and only 9 applications so far.
So what was the permit?
3-acre permit.
Stormwater runoff?
Yes. 3 acres of impervious surface or more on a property.
How many of those
Generally.
are in Poultney?
I don't know the exact amount. There have been 2 applications from Poultney already to meet that permit requirement, but I don't remember the exact amount. I think it was under 20.
I think the colleges put a permit application in.
They did as part of
The elementary school put an application in. I think Greenstone Slate has an application in.
Okay. So the only other, the regional plan update is ongoing. There was some report out about that. And I think that, the emergency management has 90 million, you were asking me that number earlier, of hazard management grant program funds. So that is the grant program that we applied to for the generators already. There may be additional projects that Poultney can identify. So I'm working with Maggie to try to identify additional projects for that grant program specifically.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Anybody have any more questions for Sarah?
Thanks for all you do. Busy bee.
Okay, public comments and concerns. You have one.
Yeah.
Sure.
Concern, I guess, I'm not sure where to go with this, but I was bitten by my neighbor's German Shepherd. And the police have had to be out a number of times. We called them starting last summer. Mom's 84. I'm with her a good percentage of the time, although I'm technically a resident in New York State still. I'm pretty concerned about, I'm not too much of a lightweight. So I'm worried about her getting hurt. And also the neighbors a lot of the neighbors feel terrorized by these dogs in their loops. So,
Where is the street?
okay, my mom is 181 Grove Street. And the neighbor on the north side of her, Babcock's, I believe that's what I know them as. And I don't want to have bad neighbor relations either. They've been very friendly since my mom has been there. My mom moved there in 2019, although she'd been a resident on College Street for many years. Up till 5 years before that. She had a brief foray and came back. So, yeah. The police officer said the last time he was out, I've taken photographs. And I took photographs of my leg when it didn't break the skin, but I got a pretty nasty bruise from it. And yeah.
So I'm aware of this, but I do want maybe some clarification from you. I know your mom and you have been discussing the issue with me and with the sheriff's department.
Yeah.
And the previous deputy that was assigned to Poultney, well, I understand had been issuing tickets.
Yeah.
There was no sort of quote unquote paper trail.
He told me that she'd given them a bunch of
He told me the same.
warnings, and that the last time when I had pictures that literally had the German Shepherd and the Akita with their hair raised on their back and their fangs, like pretty serious photos of them. After that, then he said he was going to turn the warnings into fines, so they'd be fined over $1,000. That's what he told my mom.
Right, and I guess one thing I want to clarify is the most recent incident where the bite that didn't break the skin, was that the first bite or was there more than one bite?
Well, last year, when we first called the police, I think was when the German Shepherd bit my mom's dog.
Okay.
But didn't break the skin.
Because I've always understood it was just a harassing, menacing dog. I never knew before this bite that there was a
Yeah.
bite of another animal.
Yeah.
Because the select board has been discussing what can we do to tighten our animal control ordinance.
Yeah.
And Deputy Ricketts, the previous
Right, that
deputy,
was-
was the one that was
Yeah.
issuing tickets. But apparently there's no paper trail. So the current deputy, Tyler Dool, said, okay, now, under his advice, now we're gonna start the building the case process over. No, I never told you that.
No, you didn't tell me that.
Well, that's unfortunate.
It does seem redundant. Why does that have to be redundant?
Well, as we've been talking about, and I've sent you, our ordinance, the VLCT model, Fair Havens as an example of what you could do.
Right now, we do have the fine, we have the fines in place, but
There needs to be all those steps before you go any further.
Well,
Saying,
I think with a bite of a person, I think there's a little different avenue you can go.
yeah, it should be
Yeah.
isolated.
Yeah, Tyler said that he was gonna put it in as a report. He said, I can put it in as a bite, but because there was a previous incident, if I put it in this other way, just that they were out again, that it would have more legs because of the history, but maybe, so I don't know. And I said, I don't care what you put it in as, if there's better chance of something being done.
Right, yeah.
Do it that other way, do it that other way. But maybe if there was no paper trail, then it,
So I had
If he puts it in as a report, she would get a copy, yes?
I'm not a police officer, so I don't know. I think probably if she asked for it, probably, yeah.
now, one of the things is I never made a previous, he had me write out a statement.
Tyler?
Plus I sent him pictures.
Tyler or?
Tyler did.
Okay.
But the previous Ricketts never had me write a statement out. I just sent him the photographs that I'd taken. And he made some sort of report.
So, so we've had other incidents of, short of a bite, the menacing dog thing, and, I was actually, my physical safety was threatened, but that's another thing. But the board knows that, in my opinion, and I think other opinions, that the ordinance we have is not very strong.
Enough teeth.
No, geez, right.
We gotta put no pun intended, but we gotta put more teeth into it.
Yeah.
Well, it's got the impoundment, Commission Article 13.
And as I've stated,
We don't have a
if we
place
don't
to
have a
put it.
place to impound.
Right. Well, it says.
We don't even have, the problem is when you find someone, there's nowhere that we know that you paid your fine or haven't paid your fine. That's happened. We can find them 3 times, or you find them.
Right.
Did they pay their fine? Did we up the fine? So it
And then what
needs
do you
some
do
work.
if they haven't paid it?
Right, we don't know from the state because it doesn't go to us. So there's a whole big circle that we have to figure out.
Somebody put that in my ear that it wasn't.
It's not a lot of money.
And also that, have that on the record. But
Yeah, right, yeah.
You figure that out,
Right.
then
So we
the
do it.
accountability goes out.
We are trying to work on that piece.
So I guess what I'm also saying is I'll talk to Tyler because, like I said, the last time I spoke with him on his recommendation, well, we need to start building the case again. But, if perhaps with the fact that there was a bite, that we can go into the quicker
I mean,
pace.
they did after last year when they supposedly were fined for $1,000, they did finally get the fence better secured, but that hasn't prevented them from getting out accidentally. But I feel a little more secure that they're not going to escape the fence when they're out there, because there's like 4 of them. I mean, the German Shepherd is the one that's the most aggressive. But, actually, total, there's a Wolfhound and the German Shepherd and an Akita, and now there are 3 puppies. So there's actually 7 big dogs, and they have a tiny little pen that's not even as big as this room. So it's kind of, I feel bad for the dogs too.
We need to continue working on that plan, on that ordinance.
Yeah, Paul
But
gets
now
it, so, yeah.
that sounds like with Paul, now that it is a bite, a physical bite, it's up at a different level.
Yeah.
And you're gonna talk to
Okay,
Tyler.
If I hadn't had 2 layers of pants on, it would have broken my skin.
Yeah.
I
So he's gonna talk to Tyler about that because of the physical part. And we will continue on our ordinance.
I'm just concerned. I mean, mace now.
Yeah. Well, thank you. We don't know unless they report it, let us know. So
Well, and that was part of coming tonight. So, you know, again, I don't want to have that. My neighbors, they've been nice. They're not, in fact, the man pulled up while I was on the sidewalk and said, I haven't seen your mom in a while. Is she okay? And I was like, really?
Well, she's afraid to go outside.
Yeah, I wish I'd thought to say that, but he's never hardly ever spoken to me. Giljean and Crosby. Giljean's Crosby's grandmother. Crosby's the 16-year-old redheaded who's a treat. But again, not very competent as far as being able to keep the doors closed. I mean, even after that last report, I was gone that next weekend, and Sarah, my neighbor across the street, said 2 of them are running free.
Okay. Have you asked for him to put a muzzle on his dog? I know that sounds kind of hard. But the town does.
I mean, I think that's,
Shouldn't even
I
be
think
out.
that's for this, if it turns into
Right.
a case of beyond building the case,
Right.
I think it's for this select board to have a meeting with these people and
Right.
tell them what they should do with their dog and what they, you know.
Anyway, I know you have a ton of stuff on your plate.
Nope,
thank you, Madam Kelly. I appreciate
that's
it.
personal safety.
Well, yeah, and there's a lot of older people. I mean, there's Mary who's out with her shopping
Right.
cart. She's
Right.
not steady on her.
Yep.
Sarah, you know, has an 11-year-old daughter. The hounds have expressed being afraid of the dogs. They come charging through. I mean, they're in their late 70s. You know,
At the minimum, has the dog had rabies shots?
I have no idea.
Is it nice?
I have no idea.
Did
And
she
it didn't
know-
break my
The last time I
twins,
checked with the clerk, it had yet to be licensed.
Right.
But do we have
You
to,
don't know.
we have to talk about that. 'cause-
Anyway,
Yeah, let's
maybe
talk
we need-
about that.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
Maybe we need to meet with these people.
Yeah, it does mention that.
Okay,
Thank you. So-
thank you for coming.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
All right, any other public comments or concerns? All right, at this time, do I hear a motion to sign the board orders? Any comments or questions by the board? All in favor? You in favor of signing the board order, Cheryl? Good. Motion carried. A motion to go into executive session for contract matters and personnel matters.
Pursuant to 1 PSA Section 313A1, make a motion or find that premature general public knowledge will clearly place this board or person involved at a substantial disadvantage in certain matters related to contracts were discussed outside of executive session. Pursuant to 1 VSA Section 313A1A, make a motion to enter into executive session to discuss contract matters and personnel matters.
Do I hear a second?
Second that.
Any comments or questions by the board? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried.
Can you also make a motion to briefly discuss personnel matters?
Yes,
Is that in there?
yeah, you said contract and
Okay,
personnel.
sorry.
So we're in executive session at 8 o'clock.